Hello, and welcome to another installment of the Spirit of Texas Author Spotlight. I'm Lauren Scott, Chair of the Spirit of Texas Reading List Committee. In this episode, we are excited to welcome Spirit of Texas 2022 honoree Samantha Mabry, author of Tigers, Not Daughters. Your host for this interview is Spot Committee member Brenda Henricks.
I am here today with Samantha Mabry, author of Tigers and Not Daughters. And that's the book that we'll be discussing today and asking some questions. But first of all, let's talk about some of your background. Samantha has returned to the Southern Methodist University, or SMU, after having taught for almost a decade at the El Centro College over the years. She has instructed students of all ages and from a variety of different backgrounds. All of her students have made a profound impact on her writing and have challenged her to be a better teacher, citizen, parent, and friend. Samantha is a writer, having published 3 novels, including All of the Wind in the World, which was nominated for a National Book Award in 2017, and most recently, Tigers, Not Daughters. Her short work has been anthologized and has appeared in D Magazine's summer fiction issues. In addition, Samantha is an SMU alumna, having graduated magna cum laude with a department distinction in English in 2003. For anyone who might be interested, her project for distinction involves study of the function of mobs and riots in Shakespeare's Roman plays. She went on to complete her MA in English at Boston College, graduating in 2006. Samantha credits her tendency toward magical thinking to her grandmother, Garcia, who would wash money in the kitchen sink to rinse any bad spirits. She and her family split their time between Mineral Wells and Dallas, Texas. Good afternoon. Hi, Samantha. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks
Good.
for wanting to talk to me.
We are talking about your book today, Tigers, Not Daughters. Let's see if I can get that in there. And the cover to me is wonderful. I love the way it looks. It's very appealing to my eyes. I'm very much a shopper when it comes to looking at covers to see whether or not I think I'll enjoy a book or not. But thank you for giving us a portion of your time today to talk about Tigers, Not Daughters. I read the book this summer, and so I think that it would be a great reread. I kind of reread portions of it this last few days just so I would be familiar with it again. I'm at an all-girls school in Lubbock, which we talked about the fact that I'm in Lubbock, but the all-girls school having a character, having the characters, the main characters, being all female, that's really appealing to our particular campus and makes my heart happy because I'm able to recommend a book that they are familiar with or can be familiar with that has a strong female impact. So let's talk about some of the questions that we have about the book itself. How does this book relate to you and your own life experience? And have you experienced a loss such as Anna? Is that how you say the name, Anna?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, in your life.
Okay. So sort of like to set that up. Anna is a sister who there's 4 sisters. Anna, Iridian, Rosa, and Jessica. Anna has died a year prior to the start of the novel, and it's mostly narrated by the 3 sisters in 3 different chapters. On that year anniversary of her death and like the few days after that. The answer is like I have no siblings. I am an only child.
Oh, okay.
And I have not experienced a loss like this, which gave me the ability to all of the sisters grieve in really different and specific kind of ways, and so I was able to work with that. And but I don't have sisters, but I sort of based these sisters on my mother's family, and she has 2 sisters and a brother, and they don't, it's not that they don't get along. They're just very different. Like it's a very different kind of sister dynamic that I had seen presented in fiction before. I mean, like all of them kind of don't like one another. They're not very similar. But they do kind of come together at times and then drift apart at times. And so there is one aspect of the novel, which is with regard to Jessica and her boyfriend, and they're in a car, and there's like this sort of abusive moment, which mirrors a really similar thing that happened to me with a boyfriend in a car, like who wouldn't get out of the car, and I was like freaking out. But as far as the crux of sister dynamics and lost dynamics, that was all an imagined version of my mother's family, or just what I thought.
Well, and I actually just reread that portion. I kind of skipped around to kind of familiarize myself with the book again, and I loved it myself. And that particular portion I felt like was probably going to be something that you would maybe discuss. And so I just read that portion again, and it is a scary moment. And that part of the book I think would resonate with a lot of the female audience that would read your book. So
I mean, yeah, I think about that as far as like one of the moments that I remember very, very clearly from being a teenager. I remember this so much. And when I was writing, it's not like I was looking for a place to put it, but I knew that it was such a different depiction of like what abuse looked like, you know, but it seemed like it could be, you know, because when I'm in my 40s now, but we were all in our cars all the time. And, you know, and you go with your boyfriend in their car at like 5 and then come home at midnight. I mean, like you were just constantly there. And
right.
this sort of idea of someone that you really hate not like getting out of your car. I don't know, like it stresses me out still. I don't
right.
Like and it's just like it's this invasion of space. And so that was like a really almost exact kind of copy of like what was happening outside of, it wasn't my house, it was his house, and he like wouldn't get out. I was like dropping him off and he wouldn't get out of the car, you know. And but like it's like very clear and like a very, very clear moment in my memory.
Well, from reading it, I wondered if a lot of the well, you know, usually a lot of the writing is probably personal anyway, but I wondered about that particular portion since I reread it today, and how it related to you, or if it did, or maybe even someone you knew. So that was kind of interesting to know that you know, girls encounter that all the time, and being at an all girls school, I'm sure that that's something that, like I said, that would resonate with anyone who's reading this particular novel. So what is the significance to the San Antonio setting, since you are from the Dallas area?
Right. So my mother and her sisters, they are from Mission, which is a border town on the Texas-Mexico border. And then they moved to Dallas when she was in elementary school. Now I've never been that far south in Texas. I have never been to Mission. I've been to San Antonio and kind of know San Antonio. And so I did want there to be a very entrenched Hispanic, Latino community that they lived in. And I wanted there to be like threats of gentrification, you know, like there's inklings that like the houses are being torn down to replace, you know, like new houses are coming in and that kind of thing. So I just wanted it to be a very like I wanted that Mexican culture or Mexican American culture to be in that city and be very part of their neighborhood. And there was also just the necessity of there being a park nearby, like because like there's a hyena that escapes, and I needed like the zoo to be near the park to be the neighborhood. And so all of that together and gave me San Antonio.
Okay. I know that San Antonio goes through a lot of you know, renovations, and just like all cities, And I think the Latinx area probably is affected just as like any place else. And so that being set in San Antonio, kind of also is an area that a lot of people are familiar with, especially in the state of Texas, obviously.
Mhm.
Do you mind if I read a quote? One of the quotes that you have that has been mentioned, and it's part of it is on the back of your book, and it says, "Move over, Louisa May Alcott. Samantha Mabry has written her very own magical little women for our times. This is no family of tame girls, but a clan of fierce and fighting young women who draw readers into their spell. A celebration of the bonds of sisterhood and the ways we heal by reaching beyond our losses, our brokenness, and the fears to love that holds and heals," by Julia Alvarez. How does that make you feel to be compared to such a historical book and author?
Well, okay, this is that I've never read Little Women. But my main thing, so I have no sisters. I apparently don't read books about sisters, but the Julia Alvarez was like the main, when I basically, before we do any kind of, the book is published, you fill out this questionnaire, and it's like, who is your dream person to write something on your book, right? Or who would you compare your book to? And I was thinking of a book called How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accents, and that's by Julia Alvarez. And I know that when I taught at El Centro, I taught excerpts from that for my Mexican American and Latinx literature class, and students really connected to that, like students who are Julia Alvarez Dominican, but they just kind of understood that family dynamic, and I was trying to do that, and so I was like, oh, Julia Alvarez, like I was like, let's get her, ha ha, and then she gave me like the best blurb I've ever seen, and it was I could not believe it. So
Yeah.
for her to say that and to compare it to, I mean, I realize Little Women is excellent, but it was sort of like a 1-2 punch of, I can't believe that she would say such a thing.
Well, I can see a little bit. I mean, I can see a connection there. I've read the book and obviously seen the movie, but yeah, there's definitely a connection to have her compare that. And I did read at the end of your book where you acknowledge the fact that some of your information, or that you loved reading her book about the Garcia girls losing their accent, and I thought that was kind of neat that then she wrote your piece for that as well and compared the two of them. So that's really awesome.
I know. Yeah.
You mentioned some of the characters at the very beginning, and one of the ones that I guess I kind of resonated with was Rosa, and I know she's the youngest. Am I correct? Am I remember correctly? But one of the things she says, because, and I don't want to give away too much on the book, but obviously we've already talked about the fact that Anna passed away, and that's what the book kind of centers around, or at least the last part of the book, middle part and on. But one of the things that she says is, "We saw Anna last night. She was standing in front of the yard, tapping on your dad's window. We thought you'd want to know. P.S. This is not a joke. We are serious." Now, this was a note that was written by friends that lived across the street, boys specifically, Hector. In the book, why did you, or do you remember why that revelation came, as far as seeing Anna, why the boys were the first ones to really see Anna, even though the girls felt like she was there, but they did not actually see her where the boys did?
Yes, I mean, I kind of can answer that in 2 ways. The boys there. So I did mention that there's mostly the chapters are narrated by the 3 sisters, and then there's like 4 sections where it's narrated by the boys, and they are speaking in this kind of we voice. And also, as you mentioned, like in the back of the book, in the acknowledgments, they mention the Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Genides, which is all in 3rd person, boys talking about these girls across the street. And of course, that was a big inspiration for those sections. But I was stuck writing this story for a very long time, because I could get to, like, I remember that it was like page 90, and it was when the sisters kind of realize that Anna has come back to haunt the house, okay, and they're trying to figure out why. And a friend of mine, I was explaining this, and a friend of mine was like, well, why is she haunting the house? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. I was like, well, this is like really problem with ghost stories. Like the ghost needs to want something. Like, what does the ghost want? And I just was like very stumped until I started thinking about it in terms of what did the characters in the book want from the ghost? And then that really broke things open because they all want very different things. And I was thinking in terms of like who would be rewarded for what it is that they want. So like I've gotten the question before about like why does the father never see the ghost? And I was like, because the father like wants her back the most. He doesn't get her, like he doesn't deserve it, you know.
Right.
The boys see her, but she doesn't face them, you know, like these kinds of, they see her like as they saw her, they used to like spy on her in the window when she was alive, and they just kind of see her that same way. So I just, that was kind of mimicked from that, and I wanted to have them all get different things from the ghost. Sometimes what they wanted, sometimes a version of that, or sometimes not at all. So that's what I was kind of playing with there.
That's one of the things I enjoyed about the book, is having the different perspective. Like you said, each chapter is written by or narrated by a different sister, or like you said, the boys. And so that's why I was wondering. And I kind of wondered if that was the connection, because I remember, at the beginning I'd read about them watching her in the window and then watching them climb out and that sort of thing. And so I think that was a great turnaround. You did a great job with that. It appealed to me, and I think it would probably most people. Again, Rosa, let's talk about her a little bit more. She has such a connection. And one of the things it says in the book is there had to be a connection, Rosa thought, between Anna and the hyena and the cardinals. And I know as a child, I was told this very saying. It says that cardinals appear when angels are near, and that the cardinal represents loved ones who have passed away. They are seen as messengers from heaven and who deliver words of love and comfort during difficult times. If you see a bright red cardinal, it means you are being blessed with good luck and fortune. So is that something that you learned from your culture, or maybe something that you heard maybe as a child about the cardinal, and then added the hyena and the fact that she has such a connection with animals?
I have never heard that. I have never heard that. And I saw that, like Brenda sent that like earlier, that little note about the cardinal. And I was like, well, I wish I could say like, yes, that's exactly it. You figured it out. I had never heard that. I just liked the imagery of this bird in the grass, like it falls into the grass and like stays there, and like the contrast of those colors, like that brightness. And then there is a hyena that escapes from the zoo at the beginning of the story, and the Rosa thinks immediately that there's some kind of connection between, like, the hyena is Anna, and so like I get like questions about like why a hyena, and it came down to and there's also like a dog, I mean,
Right.
like I did kind of go for the least glamorous animals, but that I just wanted there to be a sense with both the cardinal and the hyena of something very out of place, even though I know they're like cardinals everywhere, but like on the small scale, like it was just like the colors were different or something. And the hyena is just, I was trying to think of a small animal that could like be on the prowl that wasn't like a coyote or something, and would be like very frightening to come across. But Rosa is not frightened of these things because she is just a little bit strange. And so she'd be the one to be like, there's my sister, I do love, like, I'm think of examples, but like books where they're like that I do love the idea, I do love it when people put meaning onto animals, not necessarily the animal being like a typical symbol of something, but I just like love the idea that like animals are important and mean things and are like familiars to people. I always have some kind of horse or bird or something. Oh yeah, my next book I'm finishing up is about, well, it's about hogs, like wild hogs are in it. So
Well, and I'll ask you a question about that here in a
Okay.
second. Not necessarily that book in particular, but
Yeah.
related to this book. But well, and you kind of answered then, because the other question I was going to ask you about the spirits and the magical thinking, and tying to your culture and your grandmother's influences, and then if that connected to your hyena and cardinal, imagery that you put in the book. Did it have your grandmother Garcia, I presume, is that your mother's side of the family?
Yes, that is my
Okay.
mom.
Okay.
Yes, somewhat. I think that I have done more. I'm trying to think, like Rosa is my magical realism character in it. And again, it kind of goes back to like the influences of other authors. So like Isabel Allende's The House of the Spirits has a character named Rosa who like grows wings and flies away. And so this was my Rosa, who's just like going out to hunt for her sister, who she thinks is a hyena, and just is like that kind of a thing. So there are the magical realism. I feel like the sisters, well, Rosa especially, I've done other magical realism differently before, and I feel like there's like a search for magic in this. Like they want there to be a ghost, they want there to be a message, like they want the animals to mean something, and I haven't quite like filled in that blank for all the characters. I don't think we know by the end if the hyena is Anna or if it isn't. Like it's very open still. So sometimes I'm way more on the nose with like this woman is like my first book. This girl is full of poison and this is what that means. And sometimes I'm real on the nose with that, but I kept things pretty open, I feel like, for this one.
Well, with that being said, we can probably, I'll go back to the other question that I have, but maybe the last one where it's, you talk about, the ending is just ending with I want, and the fact that there's still a lot of questions and there's that cliffhanger at the end, and the fact that you said you haven't elaborated as much on some of the characters as maybe what you'd like to. Is there going to be a follow-up of some sort?
There's not.
Okay.
I didn't know that was like a thing. I thought it was over. And there's not. But I remember when I was talking to a woman who was thinking about adapting it for like a series, like a Netflix series, right? And she was wanting to do something where she was wanting to like pitch it as, I think this is what they do, but like pitch it as like a 5-season arc, with every season being a year after the next. So like this happened a year, after Anna dies, the next one would happen the next year. And I was like, what? Like, how does the fact that someone could read this book and like think that it could be 5 more years of it, is just such an outstanding thing. So I get more questions about this one. Like, is there more to the story than I've ever gotten? So not in my mind, but to have other people have it in their mind is so interesting.
I was just, the way that you ended it, and it just makes you, like I said, continue to wonder. And so I just thought maybe that might be a thought, and maybe down the road that might be something that you would consider if people are already asking you.
Yeah,
But
I don't know.
And that's pretty awesome that you said they were looking at maybe making it into a series at some point, or you were just kind of kicking it around.
It was picked up, and the writer originally, like the original writer, fell through, and they couldn't find another writer. This happens a lot, but this is the first book of mine that has been anyone has thought about turning it into some kind of film or series. And so, again, it's me going like, really? Okay.
All right. So we can kind of maybe tie it up. I have never read King Lear. I did a little research on it when I read the book initially, and then I looked at a little more again recently. And I I know, and according to a quote that I have here, that it comes from the Shakespearean play King Lear. The fact that Albany, the husband to the eldest daughter of King Lear, says something to his wife about being, it says, well, wisdom and goodness to the vile seem vile, feel savor by but themselves. What have you done? Tigers, not daughters. What have you performed? A father and a gracious aged man. So I'm curious, since you have some Shakespeare background that we read in your bio, is that where you came from, where that came from? I didn't know the connection to King Lear until I got near the end or at the end. And since I'd not ever read it, I wasn't sure exactly how that influenced you, and if you
Right.
wanted to elaborate a little bit more on that.
Okay, sure. Yeah, the title, Tigers Not Daughters, yeah, it kind of came first, which is weird, but I had gone and seen Shakespeare in the Park here with a friend. We go every summer. And it was King Lear. And so Albany is saying this like towards the end of the play. The daughters in King Lear, except for Cordelia, is like the nice one. And the rest, like Regan and Goneril, they're terrible. They just want his money. Okay, King Lear's money. And so they're just like, they're all pretty awful. And so Albany is saying this as an insult, and the way that it was spoken was really impactful. When he was like, "You are tigers, not daughters," like you were doing this terrible thing to your father. That I heard that line, and I was just like, "That is a very cool line." And what if that wasn't like bad? It's said with such derision. Like spit out, just like the harshest kind of insult. And I wanted to write a story in which the father kind of deserved it. I mean,
Okay.
he's not, my father is not a very good father. He's not a very good person. He's not totally terrible. Well, he's had his awful moments, but and that they I don't know if I was trying to make it be like a straight King Lear, because there's 3 sisters in Lear and there's 3 sisters here basically. But
Okay.
I did, mostly it had to do with this idea of like, well, what if this person doesn't really deserve their, like, I was thinking about like in a lot of Mexican American families, there's like you honor your father, you do what they say, you blah 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 blah. And a lot of times these men like don't deserve it. I mean, like a lot of times they do, but sometimes they don't. I just don't like this sort of like blind loyalty situation. And so in this book, they don't. The father does not deserve much, and so their pushing back against him is something to be celebrated as opposed to loathed.
Okay. That makes sense. I was wondering if there was a connection in that too, not just to Shakespeare, but maybe to you personally as well. So is there anything else that you want to share with us? Maybe something new that you're working on that we can look forward to, or some other inspiration or something, that revelation that came from the book that maybe I've missed somewhere along the way that you want to share?
I don't know. What's also interesting to me is to hear like people's favorite sister. People tend to have a favorite sister. Yours seems to be maybe Rosa.
Right.
Mine is Jessica. I love, she's the oldest one and she's really angry. And I remember when I was writing it, an early reader told me that her chapter sounded too similar to Iridian, the second sister. Like she was like, they're like the same person. I don't really understand. So I was like, I'll just make her like way more mad. And I did like Jessica because I liked the idea of her being a pretty strong character with very weak spots. And so, again, I gave her this boyfriend that was abusive because I think that it's helpful. I mean, I don't like to like teach lessons necessarily, but I wasn't seeing in fiction awesome girls having terrible decisions with their boyfriends. Like this is a real thing. Like I did not think that I was like a weak little meek person, but I made the worst decision with this boyfriend who was like abusive, and so I didn't want there to be, I wanted there to be this pretty strong character who just is also makes this really bad decision, because I just wanted to kind of reflect a reality that I wasn't necessarily seeing a lot.
Okay. I like I said, whenever I mentioned her earlier and you mentioned that particular part of the book, I think your writing about it and including it in that is probably one of the stronger points that unfortunately, some girls can relate to, and that hopefully that will give them the strength then to look at it from maybe that perspective like you did, and be able to handle it a little bit differently than what might have actually happened in real life, kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
well,
And
I
then,
appreciate you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, like, yes, I have a book on the schedule for next March, I think. So like kind of around this time next year,
Next year?
I'll
Okay.
be at TLA signing copies of my next book, which has wild hogs in it.
Okay. Now, I will be at TLA, so I will try to come find you because I would love to meet you in person.
Oh, great.
So that would be a great opportunity to be able to do that. And I may just bring my Tiger Not Daughter so you can sign that as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna be there in like a month, like just signing Tigers Not, because I live in Dallas, and they were like, just come down and sign Tigers Not Daughters, and I was like, okay, sure. So
Okay.
both years,
Okay.
we'll see. Okay.
Well, I know you have to go ahead and jump off here. I appreciate your time with us, and I love the book, and I'm glad I get to share it with some of my girls on campus, and then we look forward to what you have coming out next.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today for our Spirit of Texas Author Spotlight with Samantha Mabry. Be sure to check out our Spirit of Texas website for book club activities, read-alikes, and more for Tigers Not Daughters and all of our 2022 Spirit of Texas books and authors. Stay tuned for our next episode coming soon to our YouTube channel and our Spot website. Thank you again to Samantha for our time together today.